What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to another edition of the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast. I'm your host, as always, Tony Mango, and joining me on this edition is Callum Wiggins.
Headlock. Arm drag.
Armbar.
This is called the spot, right?
Yeah. Let's yell it really loudly so the mic can pick us up.
Yeah, and that sounds about right.
It's a little bit John Cena-ish, but
yeah, John Cena. That's about what I was about to say, but beat me to it.
Oh, yes, this is an edition of Call the Spot on the Card, which I always just say Call the Spot, because really I didn't think twice about how long that fucking title is when I originally gave this segment a title. It's just, really should have called it something else, but we've done 12 editions of this so far, so that ain't gonna change. Actually, we've done more than 12, but it's really been 12 like groupings together because we've done multiple things where it's like 2 in 1, and that's kind of what we're going to be doing here, which is 2 different editions of Call the Spot. Right now, you are on the edition that's going to be the Women's Money in the Bank ladder match participants, and the next video, if you're on YouTube, is going to be the Men's Money in the Bank ladder matches. And if you are on iTunes and Stitcher, it's just one thing, and it's a lot easier that way, but the YouTube people, you're going to have to click on another video to go with that. Kind of like what we do when we split the women and the men when it comes to the Sexiest Superstars tournament and stuff. So it's pretty simple. You guys know how to navigate YouTube. It's not really all that hard. But if you don't know what Call the Spot itself is, I'll give you a quick breakdown here of what it is. It's kind of like a marry, fuck, kill, but we're not like having sex with any of these people. Not only will we not do that when it comes to the marry, fuck, kill anyway, but a lot less when it comes to Call the Spot. In this edition of the whole segment kind of breakdown, what you do is you rank people based off of their skill level, their future potential, their past, what they've ever been able to accomplish, that kind of thing. And you go from top to bottom, or actually we go from bottom to top, but the bottom is released, then you go up to jobber, mid-card, upper mid-card, and eventually main event. When we get to the men's, you'll see that we added another one to that, which you guys had voted on. We'll get to that later on, but that's essentially what you got to do, and one person has to fill in every single spot. You can't tie and leave something open where you can't say, like, well, I'm going to have 2 people in the main event and nobody's going to be released or something like that. That's what makes it hard, and that's what makes it kind of fun, because you get a group of people that you really don't want anybody to get released, or you don't like anybody and you don't want any of them to be a main eventer or something like that. You still got to pick. So the Women's Money in the Bank ladder match participants were, in alphabetical order, Becky Lynch, Carmella, Charlotte Flair, Natalya, and Tamina, and kind of James Ellsworth, but he really doesn't count, even though he won the fucking match somehow.
Main eventer, definitely main eventer.
Clearly, I mean, he might as well just have the title already. He'll be like Harvey Whippleman, one of the men to actually wrestle in the women's division. But this, from bottom to top, I went through my list over a week ago before Money in the Bank actually happened, and I'm probably going to stick to the same list that I had before, but I might be able to have my mind changed along the way, and we're going to start things off with released. So, Callum, why don't we start with you? Who did you have down as your bottom of the barrel for these women?
My released is Tamina Snuka.
Agreed.
She is bad at everything. And that's not an exaggeration, I don't think. She had a decent match with Naomi on SmackDown a couple of weeks ago, and I thought to see her in a different light, because when she's portrayed as a kind of like indomitable force who's just pushing a babyface around, rarely gets taken off her feet, she does have some potential, but she's really bad on the microphone. She's not really that good in the ring. She's the daughter of a murderer, if you believe most people. And she's... I don't want this to be like a defining factor, but she's not that good looking either. So she doesn't really fit she doesn't really tick any of the boxes of why she'd be a diva, other than the fact diva... I'm going back to the 2000s.
One of them broads.
One of them broads. Oh, one of the women.
Vince McMahon speak, probably.
Just a release all of them. They're all the same anyway.
No, I agree with you. Tamina has a lot of things that she's never really been able to tap into, but that's kind of one of the negatives already. She's been in the company for, I think it's like 8 years now, 9 years maybe, and she hasn't accomplished anything. She's never won the championship. She's never really been in that solid of a feud even. Like, she's had a couple feuds here and there where I think it was like Caitlyn. She had a feud with her for like 2 months or something.
Mm-hmm.
And Natty for a little bit, but she really is just like a background spectator. And for them to spend that much time and not actually do much with her means that they don't really value her all that much anyway. And I don't really disagree with it either, because like you said, I mean, she's awful on the microphone in a lot of ways. This week in particular, holy shit. Who was it? Was it Charlotte that said, Natty, if you keep talking, I'm going to make you look like Ellsworth? And then Tamina's like, hey, Charlotte, if you keep talking, you're going to look like Ellsworth. And it was like, what? Like,
I know. She had one moment and then just decided to completely flub her lines.
Oh, God, that was so cringy. I was just like, oh, man. Backstage, she's probably sitting there going, like, I hate my life, you know?
Yeah.
She's good enough in the ring that I would be totally cool with her having, like, a decent feud with Naomi and maybe even winning the title, but she's not good enough in the ring to supersede all the others. That's the thing.
We should also add to the fact that she turns 40 in January.
She's 40 almost? Wow.
She's 39 now. And she's only had, to my knowledge, 3 matches for the Divas Championship at the time. She's never had a match for the Women's Championship. And she's very injury prone as well. There's a lot of factors going against Tamina. It seems like we're hardly finding anything
positive,
to compliment her about. Yeah. I mean, she is decent in the ring, especially if you do put her in the monster heel role. But other than that, she just doesn't have a lot going with her, especially compared to the other 4 women in this countdown.
Yeah, I mean, age is definitely a factor when it comes to released, and she is the oldest out of the bunch. And even though I'm not the biggest fan of Charlotte and Natalya when it comes to this, she is the least attractive. So that's another thing that's kind of like, well, if I'm going to have to take somebody out of the equation, and, you know, of course, with anything with Call the Spot, like, we're never kind of going like, oh, I want this person to be fired and that kind of crap for real. But, you know, if I'm going to be as stereotypically guy judging as I can be, where it's like, well, if one of them has to leave, it's going to be the one that I don't think is as good looking, that kind of thing. It would have been a factor, but it wouldn't have been the only factor. Yet if you include everything else, then it's like, well, I have no reason to release anybody else other than Tamina, you know?
And it could be worse. I mean, she's only been released. She could have been her father's girlfriend.
Well, that moves us up a notch to jobber, and I hate when I get into a situation like this where I have to put somebody as a jobber that I don't want to be the jobber because it makes sense to me, even though I prefer her more than other people. So unfortunately, my jobber is Carmella, and it sucks because she is really hot, and she's got the best character, I think, out of all of these women. Easily. Charlotte is annoying as shit to me with the whole, like, all she does is she just poses with the robe and then does the woo and says, I'm your queen, and that's it, over and over and over again. She pisses me off with that. Natty, I kind of don't get her character, because she's sort of just like a heel that isn't mean and likes talking about her cats and is sometimes like the butt of a joke. So she's kind of confusing. And Becky is just a baby face. She's just sort of like, I've got energy, and I like to say up weird. Oh, and doesn't, apparently. That's another word that she says odd. I caught that this week. It's doesn't. Doesn't and oop. But Carmella is such a great bitch. And this week, her promo was fantastic.
Yeah.
But
it was the highlight SmackDown, in my opinion.
Very much so. But I gotta put her as a jobber for 2 main reasons. She's not better than the other 3 women in the ring.
Agreed.
And well, actually, there's 3 reasons. There's that. There's the fact that she's small. So since she is the smallest, it's easier for her to job out. And it kind of makes sense. Like, her against, say, like Charlotte, you're going to be like, all right, well, I guess Charlotte would win that match kind of thing. And the third reason is she's the least experienced. So it's kind of like, you know, you can kind of play a little bit of games with Call the Spot every once in a while and go like, yeah, well, she could be a jobber now, but she can work her way up, kind of thing. You know, I hate to put her in the jobber spot, but I got to look at the other ones' careers, and I don't really want to job any of them out either. You know, who'd you got for your jobber?
Like you, I had a bit of a difficulty with this because I think all 4 of the remaining women are very talented in different ways in different areas.
Yeah.
But I differed from you because my jobber is Natalya.
She was the other one I was going back and forth with, which kind of spoils my mid-carder, but...
It seems a little weird because I think technically she's the best wrestler out of all 4 of the other women.
Me too.
Between the ropes, she is so crisp, she's aggressive, she's very strong as well, so she can really work, and she's most experienced. She has a lot of things going for her when the bell rings. Before the bell rings, she has to hold a microphone. And that's where she falls down because she is bland. Mm-hmm. She's boring. She is a bad actress. She sounds like she's reading off a teleprompter all the time. It doesn't work. And I think she's probably the oldest out of these. I haven't got the stats in front of me. She's been there the longest. She's already won championships before. Not to say that she can't win it again, and I would be okay with her winning a women's title down the line again. But she's been there at the top, and I think she's in a position now where she can take the veteran role. And I think I like my veterans to, once they reach a certain point, start handing out wins to people that need a bit of elevation. It's difficult because I don't want to put her in a jobber spot because she could easily be a top star in the women's division for years and years and years. But
somebody's got to be there.
Yeah, someone's got to be there, and I think she has the least staying power out of the remaining ones.
Yeah, I really went back and forth between Carmella and Natty, and one of the main reasons why I put Natty as my mid-carder was just her legacy already is sort of like, I almost don't want to put her down the jobber quite yet. And it's sort of like, I justified it in my mind as like, Carmella can be the jobber now, Natty can be the mid-carder, and they can start like switching roles kind of. Even though, because there's no statute of limitations when it comes to Call the Spot. We're not like, oh, this has to be permanent, that kind of thing. We make these rules up on the spot, kind of.
Oh, I thought we were setting the WWE's actual precedent here. I thought that was what we were doing with the booking thing now.
I mean, if they put as little effort into these shows as they've been doing lately on Raw and SmackDown's writing team, then they might watch something like this and go, oh, okay, that's what we should do. You know, we'll do the work for them. How about I give you a bunch of storylines and you can actually figure something out to do with some of these people on the roster, everybody. But, yeah, Natty is my mid-carder because she's sort of in the same kind of role in my mind where now, like, her time at the top, I think, is kind of past, and I wouldn't be opposed to her winning the title again, but she kind of can't compete to Charlotte and Becky, to me. Like, kind of the same as when you take somebody like a Big Show. Big Show, to me, I think, is a perpetual main eventer, but he's been in the company for God knows how many years now. Wait, he came in 98, I think.
99. St. Valentine's Day Massacre, 99.
So all that time has gone by, and he's been a main eventer outside of like little dipping down now and again. He's basically been a main eventer ever since he made his debut.
I mean, you can't really buy him as a jobber, can you?
Right, that's the thing. And it's like somebody like that, though, he can job to the people that are coming up, like a Braun Strowman, or if they do a feud with him and Big Cass, like Big Cass can beat Big Show. But at any point in time, Big Show can be in like the Elimination Chamber, and you'll be like, oh yeah, okay, it makes sense that he's in there. Instead of being like, wait a minute, Kalisto? Like that kind of thing. But Natty's kind of in that same sort of role with me, where it's like she could be fighting for the women's championship on either brand at any time, and I'm not going to think that it's a weird pecking order, but she's not going to be the one that I think is going to win. And there's people like Becky and Alexa and Bailey and Sasha that are always going to seem like they're bigger deals. So
I agree.
She kind of gets my mid-card spot, and that means that now we're on the your mid-carders, so is that going to maybe be Carmella, or are we getting somebody else in that spot?
It is going to be Carmella, and I actually switched this just today when I was thinking about it just now, based on her promo ability. It's very. I don't want to sound condescending, which I probably am going to do to certain people by saying this. There aren't that many women who are good on the microphone in WWE at the moment.
No,
Not saying there aren't.
I don't think that that's condescending necessarily. I think it's just pointing out a truth. Like, I mean, look at there's a lot of men that suck on the mic too. It's just, there happens to be a hell of a lot more men on the roster than women, so we get a lot more of everything, kind of. Like,
and there's a lot of
can't cut a promo.
Yeah. And there's a lot of women on the independent scene that are really good on the microphone. Maria Kanellis has just come in, and she's very good on the microphone. And then you have people like Katrina in Lucha Underground, or Taylor Hendricks, or people from Ring of Honor as well. They were very good on the microphone. WWE seems to have a bit of a struggle with it. Too many of them sound like they're trying too hard, which I guess is positive. It's better than not trying at all, but it doesn't make them sound natural when they talk. Carmella sounds like you say, I think she has a great grip on her character. She's got Ellsworth by her side, who I think Ellsworth has been underrated in his ability to be a heel manager. I think it's good that he's outside the ring now, because I don't think that would have had any sustainability. But now as a manager, he's kind of justified his actually having a contract in WWE.
I kind of hope that they put him on 205 Live.
Maybe down the line. Maybe he could do that with Carmella as well, like as still the package, because I think this package could last a year or two if it's treated correctly. I think it won't last that long because WWE does tend to jump the gun on things like this. But I think Carmella will be able to stand on her own. She doesn't need a manager as a mouthpiece. She just needs a manager. She doesn't need a manager, but she has a manager because she wants one to do her dirty work. And that's, I think, the genius of it, and why I want her to be in the mid-card position, because she's smart. She's smarter than all the other women. And she said that in a promo, and it makes sense. She is really intelligent, really crafty. She doesn't sound like... She's smarter than she looks. And that's probably the most dangerous combination that you can probably get.
Yeah, because you would think somebody with that whole Staten Island princess attitude thing would be some, like, bimbo.
Mm. And she's obviously, like you said, she's a great bitch. But that doesn't mean that she's not smarter than everyone else, or makes sense. She's a heel that can be justified in her actions, which is a great characteristic.
What a great touch with having the money printed pants and stuff recently too. I thought that was awesome. I don't know if that was her idea or somebody else's, but I was like, that's great. Like, of course she would go into that wearing some leggings with money on it. Like,
she is nailing it at the moment. She is SmackDown's Alexa Bliss, someone that you wouldn't have expected originally to like shoot up the rankings and become such a focal point of the division, but she's there and she deserves to be there.
I really hope that they just give her the Money in the Bank still.
I'm hoping she wins it. Yeah, I'm hoping she wins.
I really want that to happen.
I'm hoping she wins it back after two other people are fighting on top of it, and she just either pushes it down or just climbs up over one of them and grabs it away from them.
I'd love to see, like, kind of like what you're saying, like, where they sort of do something similar again, where it's like maybe Becky and like Natty or somebody, they're like throwing it back and forth, kind of like hitting each other or something like that, and it flies off. So it's like neither of them actually took it down, and Carmella just runs over and grabs it, and she's like, "Look, no guy took it off this time. I got it still." Like, that kind of thing would be so fucking funny to see people's responses.
That's probably like the best finish that I've heard for it, because my idea would be along the lines of Ellsworth tries to climb up again, Becky gets hold of him, tries to suplexes him off basically, or just throws him off, takes herself off in the process, and Carmella just climbs up and takes it.
Well, Ellsworth is banned from ringside. He
might still Smack. He still might just run down. You know that they're very flimsy with their enforcing of the rules, especially on SmackDown.
Which I'll give them credit, at least a little bit of credit for this week. I hated this week's episode of SmackDown, but there was one part of one of the promos that I liked where they were saying when Charlotte tried to make this stupid-ass discussion of, no DQ only applies to the people sanctioned for the match. I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? That doesn't make any sense. No DQ means interference is fine. But then when Daniel Bryan did his kind of thing where he's like, yeah, but we've had interference in this and interference in that, I'm like, all right, they're actually kind of sticking to the rules. And on Talking Smack, the New Day were talking about, they were like, we're doing a lot of rule enforcement and stuff. Don't the tag teams only have one save, and then if they do a second one, they get disqualified? And I was like, oh, is that like actually a thing? Because that's kind of strange that they would apply rules and whatever. And they sort of like laughed it off and everything like that. But I was just kind of like, yeah, you know what? Like, I kind of like this idea of let's try to figure out a way around these rules and stuff. And if they can figure out a way to do that and have Carmella still win, and it's like technically within the rules, but it's still kind of shady, that would be so great for her character. And I think it'd be fantastic. But they'll probably cop out and do something fucking lame, like Charlotte just wins or something. But
and all the while, Brock Lesnar still hasn't competed. He hasn't competed with his 30-day clause for his championship.
Drop that so bad. So when it comes to upper mid card and main event, I sadly have to give upper mid card to Becky, which means my main eventer is Charlotte because she's the only one left and stuff. And I'm gonna kind of give my justifications for that after you say what yours are. But what's your upper mid-carder and what's your main eventer?
I match you completely. Becky Lynch, upper mid-carder, and Charlotte, the main eventer. But so, I go with the just to start with the justification being that Charlotte should be the main eventer because she should be the heel. She should be the heel, the top heel on SmackDown. I think a heel should almost always be the kind of a pillar that you build around, because babyfaces should be the ones trying to challenge it. You're more likely to get behind a babyface when they have to topple a cocky, arrogant, dominant heel. And that's where Charlotte should be. And being a babyface right now isn't working for her.
No, not at all. She is really awful as a babyface. And I think she's overrated on the microphone as a heel, too. And
I agree.
Even in the ring, I say every once in a while she's kind of overrated because a lot of people give her credit where they say, like, well, Charlotte can have a good match with anybody. No, she can't. She's no Shawn Michaels.
I wouldn't go that far, but I do think she's one of the best in the ring.
Yeah.
And she has had more good matches than bad. She's
very the type that, like, I can't deny that she's good enough that I can understand why they like her, but I also have to deny why they like her that much above everybody else. Like, I would put her above Becky Lynch for the main event upper mid-card thing, but it's not like a big gap. It's only barely. And one of the main justifications is what you said with baby faces are better to chase the titles than to be the champion. And Becky has support from the fans. So even though she's a little bit bland at times, and she's just sort of like, I'm a good girl and I'm a baby face and you guys like me, right? Let's go win that championship. Little positive attitude kind of thing. She's still popular as hell. So you get her against somebody like a Charlotte. Becky versus Charlotte's going to be better if Becky's fighting to potentially win the title than Charlotte doing that. It just doesn't make sense to me, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I think I wouldn't agree so much with Becky being bland. I think she's in a weird position, almost like similar to Sami Zayn on the men's side of things, where she's very popular, has a very positive attitude, she brushes herself down and says, I'm going to do this the right way, and she is constantly being beaten or cheated out of wins, and that's a good way of building up sympathy, but there comes a point where it starts turning from, oh, you're a sympathetic babyface that's been screwed out, to, well, you're a loser. And it's a fine line that I think she's just about on the right side of at the moment, but it could easily turn with a couple of bad feuds.
The issue I have with her when it comes to the blandness kind of thing is with Carmella, we can tell a couple ideas of who her character is. She's from Staten Island. She's very cocky. She likes people to do her dirty work. She thinks that she's the smartest, etc., etc. Charlotte, at least with her character, even though she doesn't pull it off really well, we know that she's spoiled, entitled daddy's girl who is naturally gifted in like athleticism itself and tends to have like everybody sort of hand her things on a silver platter, kind of, even though she technically kind of wins a lot of those things. It's sort of like it was given to her already, which is a little bit behind the scenes stuff because it's like clearly they just were like, let's just fucking give Charlotte everything. But with Becky, it's like, all right, well, she's like steampunk, but isn't. And she's got this whole like straight fire thing, but like that just kind of means like, yay, energy. And she's happy, and that's good, but it's like, so is Bailey, and so is Dana Brooke apparently now. Like, she's kind of like a happy character a little bit, and that's sort of just like, well, you're a babyface, so you're supposed to be smiling kind of thing. And I don't really know too much about Becky's character other than that. She's just sort of like, I'm not a bitch, and I like to win matches, kind of, you know? I kind of want a little bit more out of her.
Yeah, she does need some character development. I think they went some way of doing it when the latest episode of SmackDown and the fallout from Money in the Bank. I think her like getting really frustrated because in the past she has been screwed out of things, but we haven't really seen the level of frustration or her feeling like, oh my god, when is it going to be my turn to catch a break? And I think we're starting to see that more now, which could be a very positive thing for her because she does need some like more character. We need to know more about her before we can get fully behind her.
Right.
Charlotte's more developed, and I think she's extremely athletic. She can perform moves that a lot of people in the women's division can't perform, such as like twisting moonsaults. And although she does have the worst finishing maneuver probably in WWE right now, which is the natural selection, used to be bow down to the queen. She can't. In some cases, she hasn't even performed it correctly because it basically looks more like a snapmare than an actual. I don't see how anybody can be beaten by that when people like hit power bombs and don't get a free count from it.
What's Carmella's finisher?
Code. It's code something. I know it's essentially a head scissors. It's head. Yeah, it's the code of silence. A modified figure 4 head scissors.
Man, when's the last time she won a match with that?
She doesn't actually win a lot of matches. Yeah, she doesn't actually win a lot of matches. I think she's won a couple of matches against jobbers on SmackDown with it, but she doesn't actually win a lot of matches, so you don't really see it that often. Apparently, she also uses the super kick, so she's like the 18th person.
Jesus, I know Tamina just got a win with a super kick, and it's like, well, we got Tamina, the Usos, Dolph Ziggler, Seth Rollins, like, just every fucking person uses that. Shawn Michaels is probably sitting there just going like, God damn it, everybody, you're ruining this. Yeah, so we have almost the same exact list. We've got Tamina, both were released. We switched up our jobber and our mid-carder between Carmella and Natalya, which I think is like, I almost basically did the same thing. Anyway, essentially, we both like Carmella more than Natalya right now.
Yeah, I think we could agree on that.
And we both have Becky for upper mid-carder and Charlotte for main eventer.
Although I think you're more reluctant about putting Charlotte on top than I am.
Oh, very much so. I mean, I would put Becky on top, or me behind, or...
Anyway,
I had to make some kind of joke about how she's better looking.
I agree with that, but then again, I'm not really one to be picky.
Well, if you guys now know exactly what's going on with Call the Spot, if you've never done this before or whatever like that, make sure you leave the comments below and tell us what your ranking would be for the women. And in the next video, we're going to be going through the 6 of the men that were in there. So that means we actually have to add another category in there. And if you don't know what it is and you're really interested, then you got to watch that video because I'm not going to tell you here. So click on that next video and we will see you then.